Well, hi, and a very warm welcome. I was going to put this up without a video, but it's a fairly complex document, so I thought I'd just introduce you to this SRMBOK guide to the 30-day risk assessment. So it's not impossible. I've done it. You can do it. It is possible to do a risk assessment in 30 days and for it to be a good one. You probably won't. In fact, most of the time I don't, because stakeholders rarely make that review cycle. However, here's the process. Even if it slips a couple of days or you need to add in site visits or what have you, it's still a really solid process to get stakeholders along the journey and supporting what you're trying to do and make sure everyone has a solid outcome on it. So this is what it looks like as a document. It's 40 pages. It basically takes you through the process, the participants, assessor's perspective, looking at how you manage the process, project plan, the briefings you need to get people on the page to make sure that the workshops actually go on track. Ask me how I know that you need a briefing. You do. So then we talk about why is it virtual. Here's a participant or facilitator's guide for workshop 1 and for workshop 2, and then for the final presentation, and then for the handover. A series of annexes are, different emails. I'll show you those as we go through. So really it's a process that's designed to leverage all the tools that we've got using first, Zoom or Teams or any other meeting software, using tools like Word, Excel, Sectara, or any risk platform that you've got to be able to capture this information quickly. So yes, maybe you won't get it 30 days every time, but it can be done if you follow this approach. So it's a pretty compressed time frame, but this is what it looks like. So week 1, kick-off meeting. Week 2, you run the first workshop with all the key stakeholders. So in fact, the kick-off meeting is really maybe the project sponsor and a couple of key stakeholders. That gives the assessor essentially 5 days to look at the material, massage it, and prepare scope, context, criteria, and a bit of an idea about what the assets are. In a 2-hour workshop, then working on the screen so everybody can see it, you basically have an idea of what you've got as a draft. Present that draft, polish any feedback, come back at week 3, workshop 2. Week 4, you present the essentially penultimate draft. And then in week 5, you have a formal handover. So it's a 30 days. So this is what it looks like from the point of view of the stakeholders. You can see in this key, so in the green are where you've got just the key stakeholders, so the people who are really driving it, maybe project sponsor even, and the assessors. The orange squares are the work that the assessor has to do in the background. So it's pretty intense. But the key to it is really saying, okay, we know what the roles are. Everybody's got a defined role. I put a lot of work into this so you can see exactly what's going on. So nothing's left to chance. You can see from the assessor's perspective what has to happen at each meeting and in between them. You can see what the process is, the risks, and no surprise, okay, pandemic's a risk, but ultimately it's the stakeholder or stakeholders plural meeting that time frame. So when we go through that, we look, here's a project plan. This is a day by day. You get the weekends off. In theory, I'll be honest, in reality, when I do this stuff, I'm often doing the work on the weekends, but it means that you can meet that flow. But in theory, you don't need to do work on the weekends. Stakeholder briefing. So this is the part, this is not the agenda for each meeting, but it's explaining what the first 10% of the meeting would do. So the kickoff meeting is maybe an hour, the workshops are 2 hours, and then the final presentation and handover each an hour. So they're 10% of that. I've gone into great detail about why virtual, all the reasons you would expect. It's faster, it's cheaper, but mostly because people can see on the screen what they've got. They can take screenshots, they can drop URLs in real time into the chat box, they can capture information that they want. You've got a video recording of it that you can go back and listen to again for the nuances. AI will give you a summary of it, so it's using the digital tools just makes it so much easier. The last time I did this, the key stakeholder meetings and the handover were 3 people each, and there were about 25 people in each of the workshops. So it can be quite a big group. There's a checklist of all the sort of things you'd need at the kickoff meeting. Workshop 1 facilitator's guide for risk assessors, so that you've got what are you actually trying to do? If you don't have risk criteria, you can use that assessment methodology from the SRMBOK risk assessment template. Presumably, every organization has some criteria, hopefully, but if you need it, it's there. There's also a series of screenshots here about the sort of tables you might use, how you might present things. There are tables in that risk assessment tool in Word. I like to do this on Sectara, that's what we built it for, but you can do exactly the same thing on Excel or on Word. So run with that. Workshop 2, Facilitator's Guide, what the agenda is, what you expect to see on the screen, what the responsibilities are after that workshop. Final draft, there's actually, I'll show you in a moment, a PowerPoint presentation you can use for the workshops and another one for the handover. So there's some draft emails. First, an email to introduce the project to the project sponsor. Then there's an email asking the project sponsor for these are the documents we'd like to see as part of our discovery. And they're all obviously, you customize it. They're a bit more formal than I would actually write, and they're a bit longer than I would usually send. But I think it's easier if you were to look at these and just delete the parts that you don't need. So take that for what it is. There's an email to all stakeholders just warning them out about what to expect with it, how it will work when they need to, and you need to insert the dates there to say this is when the workshops will be. Processes for the review phase and inviting people to actually block out at least 4 hours of that day. Here's a key stakeholder email, again focusing on this timeframes for the initial draft reviews, when to do it. A pre-workshop email to stakeholders to get people reminded about it, to turn up for starters. Also just to set the scene for what they need to be doing. This talks about the risk assessment template, why you might want to use it and how it is, some additional resources where you can find them. Of course, there's all sorts of stuff on the internet, but I don't speak for the quality of that, but these guides are designed to help you through this process. Some software tools, discussion about the pros and cons of each, and that's it. So if we go from that document to the where you can find it online, this is what it will look like. It's basically on that main web page there, at least at the moment at the top. Here are a couple of the, so the presentation itself, I guess I can go through that and just show you. You obviously need to put in the year there, not, it's not 2020X, it's 20 whatever, 24 you're doing it. Some details, everything's there for you. Inviting people to keep their cameras on. At the bottom of each of these is text, some quite detailed text, and I'll show you in a moment the process there, why they should have the cameras on, what's happening, that slide. We'll get down to here, we're talking about what the objectives are, and then we'll come down to some of these. Here's quite a detailed overview. If you're not familiar with each of these elements, it's designed so that you can pick it up and work through it. So they've all got some good text there just guiding. This workshop brief is designed so that you can set the scene briefly at the start and say, hey, this is what we're doing. You run it through workshop 1, explain it. By the time you get through here, you'll be talking about what you'll be doing with these. And there's guidance for all these, just talking about risk control, talking about risk identification, forays of risk treatments, and then give some examples what we're looking for. So that's it for that. The idea is you can run that at the start of the first workshop, focusing on the first half and the methodology. Basically run the same slide deck in the second workshop, but they've already seen the methodology, so now you're focusing on these other parts, which are really those sort of elements there, the more detailed stuff. So this is also designed to make life easy for you with a handover. You take the SRMBOK logo out, unless you really love it. Put yours in, or the company's, clients, your employer, whoever. Talk about who you are, and please change that. We don't want to receive all the questions and answers to the workshop. The agenda basically lays out the methodology, talks about processes, is designed so that senior stakeholders can see what's going on. You have to put in the scope and objectives, because I don't know what your risk assessment is. The stakeholders that you spoke to, how they influenced and what have you, and just acknowledging and thanking them. Put in lots of photos, right? People love photos. These are the things when you're talking about stuff, just think about, I've sometimes in these briefings gone through maybe 20 photos scattered over 4 slides, but that's a pretty big assessment. You don't need to. This type of a thing, once you've delineated the key risks, you might want to lay them out in a diagram like this to explain what you're doing with them. talk about the current controls, recommended risk treatment plans, priority actions, implementation, resourcing requirements, monitoring and review, next steps, question and answer, and then closing remarks and your contact information. So look, thank you for that. That's all there is to it. I hope you enjoy it. It's a pretty comprehensive document, and I've got to say, I hope it makes sense. I think if there's demand for it, I will actually turn this into a course and walk through how that process works, because I think it's the best refined process that I've been able to develop over 30-something years of doing this, and it just leverages the tools we've got in the reality of a time-poor world. So anyway, that's it from me. Thank you. Hope you enjoy it, and yeah, good luck. Let me know if you have any questions or issues or challenges with it.